WrestleMania is the biggest wrestling event in professional wrestling history. It's the turkey of Thanksgiving, the ham on Christmas, the Justin Timberlake of NSYNC. For almost 40 years, WWE has put on the spectacle that is WrestleMania, producing many legendary and memorable moments. And these memories have had a lasting impact on pretty much everybody involved. WWE superstars have had their breakthrough moments at WrestleMania, and hundreds and thousands of WWE fans' earliest memories are of watching WrestleMania with their family and friends. And some of them were first-time viewers that were going to become lifelong fans. So all of this proves is that the show of shows is legendary. So let's start from the beginning.
Welcome to WrestleMania!
In 1982, Vincent Kennedy McMahon would buy the WWF from his father, Vince McMahon Sr. Now, back in the day, wrestling in America was split into different territories, where everybody had their own section to promote wrestling, and it was forbidden to promote in another man's territory. But Vince was like, forget the rules, I'm coming to take over, and that's what he did. This pissed all of the other promoters off, and according to Vince McMahon, all the other promoters got together and planned on killing him. They were planning to aim the red dot at his head. They wanted him gone. But of course, that wouldn't happen, and Vince would go on to take over America. After destroying the competition, Vince would eventually come up with the idea to make a wrestling super show. And this super show would go on to be called WrestleMania. Now, WrestleMania was a big risk for Vince. He had to take out loans to put on the event, and if it failed, he was screwed. So in order to get as many people to buy the pay-per-view, he would get celebrities like Muhammad Ali and Cyndi Lauper. He would have the pay-per-view available in many places and have a star-studded main event of Hulk Hogan and Mr. T versus Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff and Rowdy Roddy Piper. And with no surprise to anybody, Hulk Hogan and Mr. T were going to win. The event would end up being successful and would go on to be known as the first show of the legend that is WrestleMania.
The boyhood dream has come true for Shawn Michaels.
At WrestleMania 11, Shawn Michaels would attempt to achieve his boyhood dream by facing Diesel for the WWF Championship, but would lose, making him a failure. But after winning the 1996 Royal Rumble, he would get another chance, this time against Bret Hart. Shortly after the Rumble, the WWF Commissioner Rowdy Roddy Piper would make the Bret vs. Shawn match at WrestleMania a 60-minute Iron Man match. In the match, the first half will be heavily controlled by Shawn Michaels with rest holds, and the second half will be heavily controlled by Bret Hart with attacks. But with 5 minutes left on the clock, there would be a shift. With the score still 0-0 and Shawn Michaels on the ground, Bret Hart would attempt to drop a knee from the second turnbuckle, but Shawn Michaels would counter and attempt to build momentum. Just like in WWE 2K, when you press the button for a comeback and you do a combination of attacks, that was basically Shawn Michaels for the next 4 minutes. With a minute left on the clock, the score is still 0-0, and Bret on the mat. Shawn, exhausted, slowly climbs to the top turnbuckle, but by the time he's at the top, Bret is at his feet. Michaels jumps, but Bret catches him and puts him in the sharpshooter. As the minute counts down, Michaels lays there and fights against the pain not to tap out. The clock gets to 0, and the match ends in a draw. Bret leaves the ring and starts to walk up the entrance. But then we hear Howard Finkel's voice. According to the commissioner, the match must restart and be under sudden death rules. Bret goes back into the ring with Shawn Michaels and the match restarts. Shawn would hit Bret with 2 Sweet Chin Musics to win the WWF Championship. Shawn's done it. His boyhood dream has come true. The dream he's had since he was a little boy has finally come through. He's went from teaming with Marty Jannetty to becoming the man in the WWF. His mom would be proud. Now, I can't have a video about WrestleMania without talking about this man. For 22 years, The Undertaker consistently beat every man they put in front of him. From a Sasquatch, a cop, a nature boy, a cerebral assassin, animal, heartbreak kid, and more. The Undertaker has found a way to come out on top at the grandest stage of them all. But the streak didn't become a thing until 2005 when he was already 12-0 heading into WrestleMania. In early 2005, Randy Orton wanted to make an impact, so he called out The Undertaker to be the first man to beat him at WrestleMania. Randy Orton would go on to lose, but that match will be the beginning of a legendary run of 5-star classics. He took championships, ended careers, and there was a year he couldn't even walk out the building. Every year, his match would have our full attention. Half of us hoping the streak would continue, and the other half praying on his downfall, hoping that that year would be the year the streak died. But deep down, nobody thought the streak would actually end until that shocking night in New Orleans where we would see this.
Going for a triple. A third and 5 minutes. Brock Lesnar into the cover. Hooks the leg. The streak is over.
Undertaker lost at WrestleMania, something nobody thought they'd see in their lifetime. Everybody and their mom was shocked. It was a monumental moment in wrestling history, and even after 9 years, watching the clip back, the hairs on my arms still raised as the ref counts to 3. It was crazy, and you know it was a big moment if people are asking you, where were you when the streak died? And if you weren't a wrestling fan at the time, or you weren't born yet, I feel sorry for you, because that was a moment that no wrestling fan who lived through it would ever forget.
Ruthless aggression.
After WrestleMania 18, WWE started to go through a shift. The Attitude Era was coming to an end, the roster was going to be split in two, and a new wave of superstars were coming in. And this new wave wasn't just any regular group of people. These guys were special. So special that they would go on to be known as the OVW5. And at WrestleMania 21, 2 out of the 5 will begin their path to legendary status. In January 2005, Triple H and Batista, along with Edge, Chris Benoit, Chris Jericho, and Randy Orton, fight for the World Heavyweight Championship in the Elimination Chamber. Triple H would win the match, but the next night on Raw, Randy Orton would show a clip of Triple H hesitating to break up the pin between Randy Orton and Batista. Batista turns to Triple H, looking angrier than Flight after losing in my part. The cracks really start to show at this point. Later that month, Batista would go on to win the Royal Rumble match. Triple H starts to get worried about Batista and tries to sweet talk him into challenging JBL at WrestleMania. It doesn't work, so Triple H does the next best thing. Murder, by having a white limo just like JBL's almost run Batista over. But Triple H would come in to save him at the last minute and try to put the blame on JBL. Batista would eventually catch up to the whole plan by eavesdropping on Triple H and Ric Flair on an episode of Raw. Later that night, during the contract signing, Batista fakes signs with SmackDown and signs with Raw, officially turning on Evolution. At WrestleMania, Batista would beat Triple H, become world champion, and end Triple H's reign of terror, and take the first step of his singles legendary career. Over on SmackDown, you had John Cena. And at No Way Out 2005, John Cena would beat Kurt Angle to earn the right to face JBL for the WWE Championship at WrestleMania. So over the next couple of weeks leading to WrestleMania, John Cena would feud with JBL in the Cabinet. During the feud, Cena would lose his United States Championship to Orlando Jordan, and JBL in the Cap would burn his customized one. Later that night, Cena would bring out a steel pipe to get revenge, but Teddy Long would come out and tell Cena to chill out and wait till WrestleMania. John Cena wasn't having none of that and said Teddy was also a part of the problem and gave him an FU. The FU apparently pissed Teddy off to the point where he banned Cena from touching JBL until WrestleMania. So fast forward weeks later, Teddy would say if JBL messed with Cena, Cena could attack. John Cena would tempt JBL to hit him by disrespecting him to the highest order. Cena would pour water in his hat, vandalize his limo, and spray FU on his shirt. So JBL, in a heel fashion, would try to get revenge. So the next week, JBL would turn into a Karen and call the police on Cena. At WrestleMania, John Cena would beat JBL to win the WWE Championship. So it was at WrestleMania 21, where Vince would get his new top stars. Because after Brock Lesnar left, he had nobody to carry the company through the Ruthless Aggression era. And it wasn't until that monumental night where Batista won the World Heavyweight Championship and John Cena won the WWE Championship that two legends were born.
Houston, we have a problem.
WrestleMania 17, the WrestleMania that is considered the greatest of all time. And I agree, the card was stacked with entertaining matches. Also, the pacing of the event was A1. As to keep the crowd from getting exhausted, they had filler matches like the 6-man tag and gimmick battle royal, but those were just the appetizers, and the main course was coming up next, like father versus son. Shortly after Armageddon 2000, Vince would demand a divorce from Linda. Soon after, Linda would have a mental breakdown and end up in a wheelchair. Vince would then turn into a level 10 menace and start cheating on Linda with Trish, manipulate his daughter Stephanie, humiliate Trish, and still manage to keep her on his side. He should write a book. Eventually, Shane comes back and buys WCW. And that same night that Shane announced that he bought WCW, Foley would make a street fight match between Shane and Vince at WrestleMania. At WrestleMania, it was literally a family drama. Father and son start off with their match, then eventually the side chick pulls up with the wife. Shockingly, the side chick comes to her senses and turns on the cheater. The daughter then comes out and starts a cat fight with the side chick, and they leave. Vince then sees his disabled wife and puts her on a chair in the ring to watch him beat down on their son. But the wife finally stands up for herself, literally, and low blows her husband. After some assists from Mick Foley, who is the referee, Shane would do a coast to coast and pin Vince to win the match. The next match was a TLC 2. Now, sequels aren't usually as good or better than the original, but this was an exception. This match had high spots, which were expected, but had one that stands out from the rest: Edge spearing Jeff off the ladder, a moment that would never be forgotten. Also, there were interferences from all teams, and they took the match to a whole nother level with their own spots. Edge and Christian would end up winning the tag team titles in the ladder match. Now for the main event. At this time, the WWF and the Attitude Era were at its peak, so it was only fitting that we have the two biggest stars fight one-on-one at the grandest stage of them all, WrestleMania. Before the match, they played that top tier video package with the My Way song. And after that, they announced that the WWF Championship match is now a no disqualification match. So after the entrances, the match eventually starts, and Austin and Rock put on a classic. After a few minutes of back and forth from Austin and Rock, Mr. McMahon comes out and everybody's confused. And now with McMahon at ringside, The Rock hits the people's elbow and goes for the pin. But McMahon pulls him out. The Rock, who's pissed, chases Vince around the ring, only to end up running into his own finishing move, the Rock Bottom by Stone Cold. Later on in the match, Austin tells Vince to get a chair, confusing everyone. Austin attacks Rock with a chair, pins him, and becomes the new WWF champion. Ending of the match surprised everybody, because Austin and McMahon, they were enemies, they were feuding, because the Austin and McMahon feud was the rivalry that symbolized the Attitude Era, being edgy, no more cookie cutter, and rising up against the authority. But after the match, we see, in JR's words, Austin sell his soul to the devil. As WrestleMania 17 comes to a close, we see Austin and McMahon shaking hands, signaling that there would be a change, that this was the beginning of the end of the Attitude Era. But we can all agree that WrestleMania 17 was one of the greatest nights in professional wrestling history. So, in summary, WrestleMania will never be topped.